Solaris BlueRaven, and I I don't have enough words to speak about the difference that you have made in so many lives for people that have felt isolated and just so discriminated or dismissed because of the crazy world that it is for them. And I'm hoping you can give our audience a little bit of insight into these electronically controlled worlds, Solaris. So it's a pleasure, as always, to have you with us, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin, and good morning to everybody. It's nice to be on your show. And I love Donald Trump, and I'm behind him 100%. I'm right there with you, sister.
Okay.
Hey, it's funny because I have a lot of people on my Facebook page who are kind of eclectic, I guess, and yeah, they're just like, oh, they think he's the Antichrist. So I'm saying ignorance, total ignorance.
But it's that fear, it's just
Yeah.
like all the people that we talk to that say, "Oh my gosh, you're actually interested in what I'm saying," and it's why not? But their family and friends are so threatened by anything that questions the mainstream and that might cause it to unravel. They lash out and they think they can, browbeat them with all kinds of nastiness because they dare to ask questions that shake up their world.
Right. Yeah, and you can tell they're programmed, by the way. You can tell by how they're functioning on the timeline. The people that are under the mass hypnosis are the ones that are acting that way. Those of us who are awake know what's going on.
Yeah. Can you expand upon that a little bit? Because many there's so much fear, Solaris. We've been living for the past almost 8 years with unending, well, even before that, with George W. Bush as well. This means to just demoralize everybody and keep them unable to think clearly because of the fear.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with mainstream media, to be honest with you. I think they've been spoon feeding the masses for so long that the masses have become complacent. They're very selfish. From what I see, they're too busy taking pictures of their food than to pay attention to what's really going on here. They're afraid of anything that's going to make the change for the better, which surprises me because it's almost like they're after their own self-sabotage. It's like a drug addict who doesn't want to get better. You have to ask yourself what's going on here. But I think a lot of it has to do with media propaganda, forced propaganda, the teachings in school, how they're not accurate. I mean, all these children are being trained to behave a certain way and be compliant, when in fact you're supposed to be empowered and strong and athletic. And we grew up, I don't have to tell you this, but we had our own empowerment. We were controlled, but not to the level they are now, and not where everything's a crime. If you have a toy squirt gun, oh my gosh, you're a serial killer. I mean, the stuff that's going on right now is absolutely insane. And then put an overlay on that with some of the toxicities in the environment, atmospheric, water, you name it, they're doing it with vaccines. Plus the other things that I know about with the psychotronic warfare. I just put a witch file out about psychotronics and drones, which I'm pretty sure that they're using right now. Insofar as the drones, they use them for surveillance. Well, I'm pretty sure that they're incorporating psychotronic warfare, which means directed energy weapon, no touch torture from a distance, which means people can be hit with any type of attack. They can have a heart attack. They can have a seizure. They can hear a dialogue of communication. So this is just another animal and a tentacle. And I'm working on that too. I sent you a link on the woman who got strangled for exposing MK Ultra.
Oh God, please tell us this story because I had no idea this article came out in the Times back in 2008.
Yeah, it's really weird. I just kind of fell on my lap. I just see these things floating by sometimes. But Sarah Kershaw, she was found asphyxiated or strangled in her apartment in Kershaw, wrote about illegal programs known as MK Ultra. MK Ultra is a CIA mind control program, obviously, which uses humans to experiment on. So she was taken out. It's interesting to me that this stuff is going on, and it's kind of subtle. I mean, once in a while you'll see some of the stuff coming through, but I'll tell you, more and more people are getting taken down. If they stand out, if they're awakening people, if they're enlightening people, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's politics, covert technology, whatever it is. If you're a speaker and you're standing out there and you're being counted in truth, they seem to be wanting to triangulate and target you. And we could say Lavoy Finnegan was part of that because he was a good role model. He was actually very educated and was talking about a lot of good things. He got taken down. You see what's going on here. So I'm looking at it, and I'm telling you, there's a kill list out. I said it before the other day. I'm pretty sure that they've got their agenda, they've got their list, and they're initiating that list right now. So I would say be very watchful of this as people who are in the what I call truth media, not alternative, and pay attention to what's going on here, because they're going to find any reason to bother people at this point to continue. If we don't get it under control, if we don't get somebody like Trump in office, I think that this could be a disaster in motion.
Yeah, it just boggles my mind how all the chatter that we hear, even in alternative media, from people who claim that they want change. Not, I hate to use that word because it's so associated with Obama, that they want something different that will get them back a world they can be proud of, that will guarantee a future for the next generations. And here they are going after the same old nonsense. So, yes, the psychotronic brainwashing, the subtleties, can you lay some of that out? Because I really feel, I don't have the data to back it up, but you might have it, that there's a lot more of this that has become commonplace. People don't even know it is going on such big levels.
Right. Well, because it's a no-touch torture, it's done through remote. I mean, it's done through either satellite-driven technology. It can be done remotely. So literally, you don't have to be in a close proximity to get targeted with this type of technology. It's a signal transmission, bottom line. And the signal triangulates the target into the neural circuitry of the brain. It starts interfacing with an artificial intelligence program and creates an overlay of a false brain template, which creates a possible schizophrenic brainwave pattern, other brainwave patterns that cause seizures. Hallucinations is really big. Some people will see things. You see and you hear a lot about people who have extraterrestrial experiences. Well, I don't count that we have other species out there, but I will tell you most of the stuff that they're seeing is more than likely part of the psychotronic underground program. And I've mentioned this before with military abduction. So there's a lot of that going on. So when you see what's happening here, and even if they're not getting a visual, they might get a transmission and signal where they feel a certain way, fear, they feel strange, they feel disassociated. I mean, it can affect people on so many different levels, on an emotional, mental level. Those of us who are really enhanced and have higher IQs tend to break down the technology easier. I don't say this with any arrogance, but it's just the way it is. So, but it's all done by remote. And as I said, a lot of it's satellite driven. Some of the cell phone towers, that's kind of like the old school stuff. The microwaves are old school. They're using stuff that's way, way advanced now with the signals intelligence. It's gone light years beyond where it used to be back in the 70s and the 80s. You know, they used to have the think tanks back in the Pentagon where they'd have the brainstorm tanks. They used to use brain links back then. I think it was in the 70s they used brain links for the Pentagon. So you can see how they've upgraded the technology where they're weaponizing the brain. So with that being said, I'm a firm believer that the majority of people are being complacently programmed to some degree with a frequency, ultra low frequency perhaps, that they can't really detect. It's just going to keep them lulled. It's going to keep them their nose to the ground. It's going to keep them in that space of being almost drugged through a frequency, when in fact they should be raising their vibratory rate to get out of it and snap out of it. And, you know, you see it from day to day. It's like the zombie. I mean, it reminds me of the zombie wars because you're seeing people that are almost like zombies wandering around.
Yeah, I agree with you. And would you say, because this is something I've observed, and fortunately, I'm not traveling as much as I did a few years back, but all throughout the airports, the different areas, you have television screens, and you see people that the feeling of them sort of changes. And I would go out on a limb here and say I think there's other applications of weaponry at use, syncing the emotions that they want connected with the news that's being broadcast.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they can affect emotional behavior. I know that, and that's part of that psychotronic program. They can affect anything just about. If you're sensitive enough, you can feel it. But your normal radar will usually tell you get a good vibe or you get a bad vibe about a situation. I would say follow that gut feeling, follow that radar, because that's what's going to tell you what's going on. However, there are other programs that run that kind of stimulate that. So if somebody has a lot of fear already, on a psychological scale, then they'll enhance that. They're going to enhance whatever their fear is through the communication system. I'll tell you, a lot of it's through the artificial intelligence program right now. So it's all mimicked through AI and interface and looping programs and all the stuff they used to do with the EEG cloning and everything else. But yeah, I don't discount that in airports at all. And being plugged into some of the technology I've been plugged into, you know, I've had severe pain going through those machines they use. I mean, when I walked through those things, I could feel the pain in my skull, because I had a lot of braiding going on between the AI interface and my own neural circuits, which was the problem. So I wanted to say also that I think I told you about the implants that are there that register air traffic control, and they register deep space. And those are things that are actually done by us and our technology and our exotic technologies department. So they do have those that people get implanted with too.
And this is now being resurrected about, oh, how wonderfully easy this is to have a chip on your wrist, which ties right in with Ira Levin's book, This Perfect Day, which I remember reading that years ago. And of course, you read 1984, George Orwell's book, and the picture of the future that is painted is what we are living now. And look at that. We're in, I don't know if you saw the article yesterday about having this chip on the back of your hand. This is a disc-shaped chip, not like the ones I think it was Angel Technologies they were using in test groups in Florida in the 1990s to chip a community of people in South Florida so that they could pay for everything at the supermarket or at a restaurant or wherever they would go. But when I saw this article that actually stated, and when you want to open a door, all you do is pass your wrist. And I thought, am I losing my mind? That this is what's been so clearly written in what was thought to be fiction, written by someone who had a very serious, deep intel background.
Right. Well, it's really interesting because the chips mean nothing, really. I mean, they do, but they don't, because they use signals now. They don't need a chip. If you have an electrical circuitry, which you do, you're a conductor of energy, you're a natural transmitter and receiver, and I've always said that the brain is a supercomputer driving system. Whether you use it or not, doesn't matter. They're gonna triangulate it and interconnect it onto their artificial intelligence program. So it's all signal done now. They don't need a chip. And you'll notice this, more and more people will get Morgellons and things that are coming out of their skin because the body's rejecting the transmission. It's rejecting the technology that they're interfacing it with. That happens quite a bit. So I will put a link in here of Dr. Robert Duncan. I always put his information in because he's one of the original inventors of some of this technology. Hard to say, but it truly is, and with the psychotronics especially. So if people want to understand how patents are happening or if there's proof about this technology, yes, there's proof. I've talked to developers of this technology, and he's just one of them. I can prove the technology that's been built into me. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen and explode whenever that happens. So, and then more and more people are getting measured, having x-rays and things which are showing anomalous things that don't look like anything you've ever seen. Definitely foreign bodies that don't belong. And I'm not talking little things like you have an accident and you get some kind of nail or something stuck in your body. Something way, way different.
Yes, I hear you, and I've seen those reports, and there were many specifically seeking out patients like that to be able to help and find some way to try to remove whatever kinds of chips or implants that people had had. And with what you're saying now, it's got to be something altogether different to protect ourselves.
Right. You have to break the signal is the bottom line. And sometimes that can be very hazardous to the target, especially if you have, like, if they're controlling your vitals, your heartbeat, your breathing, your lungs, your brain. It can be extremely hazardous. I mean, honestly, it's a kill weapon. So, and that's another thing too. I want people to understand this is a directed energy weapon. It's not no-touch torture. It's actually a remote assassination program. It actually takes down the target. Once you get targeted with this technology, eventually they're going to kill you one way or another. There are no such things as accidents with this technology. Lorian was just talking the other day about a guy named Ron who died a couple weeks ago. I knew who this guy was, insofar as I remember him presenting at the Mind Control Summit. He seemed normal. He was articulate. He seemed okay. He was being hit. And then all of a sudden, now he's gone. So this is what I mean by these people disappear, they die, and people say, oh, it's just natural or they're crazy. Well, no, they're not. These people were targeted and they're getting worn out. They eventually expire due to the duress of the program. This is assassination. This is huge. Nobody talks about this stuff in D.C. Nobody wants to address it because they're using it. That's the bottom line. And when you talk about freedom of speech, which they're cracking down on now, I just saw Alex Jones do a live feed about how freedom of speech and the FBI is trying to censor freedom of speech all of a sudden. Well, this is the next step, because what I went through was the artificial intelligence with my live handler real time, where he was trying to control and manipulate every word I was saying. And when I didn't comply with what they wanted, they would attack me with a directed energy weapon. I want people to understand this. That's torture, okay? And the reason I exposed it was because they were doing this. But the whole agenda behind it is to try to entrain you to behave and act and walk and talk a certain way. And if you stand up and if you're counted and if you're talking about the truth and you're representing the Constitution or freedom, then you will be targeted by these SOBs who want to misuse this covert assault technology with the artificial intelligence array system. And this is what I've been talking about for years. And guess what, Robin? It's here.
I'm sadly aware of what you're saying, and I just, we have so much to thank you for being a whistleblower about all of this, because you've already had to be in court to appear about what was done to you. You had to testify about that. And I'm sure a lot of people don't have all these details and realize how far it goes back. So we're going to go to break in a moment. And I'd like if you can tell us, we see the very tip of the iceberg, if at all. And I remember the reports probably at the end of the 70s and the 80s about mind control. And then you learn about Colonel John Alexander, and you hear about the MK Ultra groups and the Monarch groups, all these different groups of experimentation. Let's get back to that when we return.